Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your source material, put it through some serious scientific rigor.
And give you back the pure extract of knowledge.
Exactly. And today, we are focusing on a figure who didn't just participate in the world of high-quality, solventless concentrates. I mean, she really defined it.
She did.
We're diving deep into the story of Jenn Doe, the undisputed queen of single-source melt.
Yeah, and this is a deep dive for anyone who really wants to understand how a craft becomes a true discipline. Our whole mission here is to trace her path.
And cover the insights for
The technical language she literally invented, the standards she set, and, the personal fortitude behind it all. It's an incredible story.
It really is. And for you listening, if you want that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on, an entire industry's foundation, this is it. We're drawing exclusively from a fascinating profile. It's called Jenn Doe, Queen of Single-Source Melt, published by Nug Notes.
And it traces her whole journey from a hidden closet in a Prohibition-era Utah all the way to becoming this global record-holding force.
It's the ultimate story of how discipline really truly defines craft.
And what you see so quickly is that her whole approach, her meticulous nature, her refusal to cut corners, it was all forged in this environment of, necessity and pressure.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's start right there at the beginning. The foundation of her discipline, what we're calling the Utah Spark.
Right.
She started so young, and she was already, operating way under the radar.
That's right. I mean, try to imagine a 16-year-old growing in a closet in Utah.
Not exactly a cannabis hub back then.
Not at all. This was peak Prohibition, far away from the medical scenes that were starting to pop up on the coasts. Her instincts were shaped by secrecy, by a need to be totally self-sufficient.
So she's learning everything on her own.
Completely. Learning these sophisticated techniques from, rare magazines that were probably heavily edited. She basically had to become a self-taught specialist in small-room, high-precision growing.
And the source material notes this wasn't just, typical teenage experimentation. There was a profound medicinal drive behind it from day one.
That context is everything. She lost family members to cancer early in life.
Oh, wow.
And that loss, it wasn't just emotional. It gave her this singular instinct for producing real medicine.
So her focus was different from the start.
Totally different. Even in the darkest days of Prohibition, it was always on purity, on efficacy. It was technique and quality over just, volume or profit. That was her mission statement from the get-go.
So she has the medicinal focus, she's got the technique down, but then there's this pivotal moment. She gets pushed out of the mainstream solvent world, the BHO world.
Yeah, and it was a really harsh, defining moment. She was actively pushed out of a butane hash oil lab, a BHO lab.
And the source is specific about why.
It's very clear, specifically for being a woman in what was, at the time, a very male-dominated kind of aggressive space.
But that setback became her catalyst.
Her greatest catalyst. She didn't just fall back on ice water hash as a consolation prize or a backup.
It wasn't second best.
No, she chose it intentionally.
So why was that choice so important? Why solventless specifically?
Because ice water hash allowed for total single source control. BHO often required bigger, more industrial setups, maybe relying on outsourced material.
Right, you don't know what you're getting.
Exactly. But by committing to ice water extraction, she could ensure the purity and quality from the seed all the way to the finished product. She could maintain a level of oversight that just wasn't possible in those solvent labs back then.
It was a deliberate move.
A very calculated, deliberate move into a craft she could truly own and master.
And when she made that shift, her path to mastery was, it was unbelievably fast.
Incredibly fast. She was already chasing what the industry calls true 6-star melt within just 8 washes.
And for anyone listening who doesn't know, 6-star melt is basically the holy grail.
It is the absolute purity ceiling. It's hash that fully melts, fully vaporizes, leaves zero residue behind. It signifies it's 100% pure trichome heads. Nothing else.
So while everyone else is still pressing, old school hash.
She's in isolation, refining her technique, aiming for the absolute top.
And all that meticulous work in Utah, it all builds toward one single moment that just changes everything. Not just for her, but for the entire industry.
This is the historic win of 2014.
The moment the craft community finally saw what she was doing.
Exactly. In 2014, she enters the High Times Magazine SF Cup, one of the biggest stages there is.
And the product she won with, okay, we have to stop here and really dissect the terminology.
Yeah.
What exactly was it? Why is the term 90U so important?
Okay, so the product was a true 90U single-source full melt.
Let's break that down.
Right. Full melt, like we said, perfect purity. But 90U, that refers to the micron screen size.
The filter.
The filter, yeah. Hash makers use screens of different sizes, microns, to separate out the trichome heads. The 90-micron size is generally seen as the sweet spot.
Why is that?
It captures the most desirable, mature, potent trichome heads while filtering out the smaller, less potent ones and any larger contaminants. It's the gold standard for potency and flavor.
So 90U is optimal quality. But then you have the single source part on top of that. Why is single source such a massive deal in a competition?
It's the integrity guarantee. When something is single source, it means the same person both grew the plant and washed it.
Co-quality control.
Total, because you're selecting genetics, you're dialing in growing techniques, nutrients, harvest timing. Everything is optimized for resin production, not just flower yield.
Which is a huge distinction.
It's everything. That synergy is why single-source melt is almost always superior.
And that level of control is what defined the quality, but the win itself. That set a record.
It did. The victory was one thing, but the record is what made her the queen. She became, and she still is, the first and only woman to win a High Times Cup with her own single-source full melt.
Her own. Start to finish.
Start to finish. Seed to 6-star masterpiece. And that achievement just demolished the old BHO-centric narrative and cemented her title as the U.S. Hash Queen.
But what's so interesting is that winning didn't make her complacent. It actually seems like it propelled her into becoming, well, an analytical pioneer.
That's where her impact just exploded. She didn't just have great hands-on technique. She had this deep analytical mind. She wasn't just satisfied knowing how to make great hash.
She needed to know why.
The microscopic why. Why do some batches fail? Why do textures change over time? And she started making these observations that were revolutionary then, but are completely standard now.
So let's get into those specific insights. What were the big phenomena she was the first to really name and call out?
Okay, so the first key observation was nucleation in fresh frozen material.
Nucleation. What's that?
Before her, hash makers would struggle with their material degrading during freeze-drying. She was the one who identified that if you don't handle it perfectly after the wash, microscopic water molecules will actually crystallize inside the trichome heads.
And that ruins it.
It nucleates. It completely ruins the texture and the melt potential.
So she identified this huge failure point that was basically a mystery to everyone else.
Yeah.
What was the second big one?
The second was recognizing THCA crystallization happening inside that super refined 6-star melt.
Okay, so THC is the precursor to THC.
Right, the acidic, non-intoxicating form. Seeing those little crystal structures forming inside the melt was a revelation. It was physical proof of extreme purity.
It proved how concentrated it was.
Exactly. And it allowed hash makers to start predicting and even controlling the stability of their final product.
This is moving from craft into pure chemistry.
Yeah.
It's wild that this all started in a closet.
It really is. And the third observation is maybe the most recognizable one today. She totally reframed whiteout.
Right, when hash changes color and texture.
Yeah. Back then, if your hash turned white or buttered up quickly, the consensus was that it was bad. It was oxidation, degradation, a flaw.
But she saw it differently.
She correctly identified it not as a flaw, but as a controlled phase change.
Okay, a phase change. Like water to ice. What does that mean here?
Think of it like tempering chocolate. You have to precisely control the temperature and environment to force the material to stabilize into a desired state, or phase. She realized that by controlling temperature and pressure, they could trigger this change in a good way.
So you're harnessing the instability instead of fighting it.
Exactly. You lock in the terpenes and potency while also creating a preferred stable texture.
So what was the big so what from all this? How did nucleation, crystallization, and phase change influence what we see on the market today?
They literally wrote the roadmap. Her insights became the language and the science needed for developing successful cold cure textures.
That stable, waxy consistency that holds up so well.
That's the one. And those same principles are behind the newer, super sought-after Piatella wave texture, which is sort of like a solidified wax or taffy. Her rigor gave the entire industry the vocabulary for consistency.
And this all connects back to her plant-first philosophy, right? It didn't start in the lab.
It was born in the garden. She treated her cultivation space like a classroom. She knew the melt could only be 6-star if the input material was absolutely perfect.
She was growing for resin, not just for flour.
A huge distinction. And there were specific techniques that became her dough tips. This blueprint other washers started adopting.
What were some of those?
Well, for one, she implemented a precise 48-hour pre-chop stress regimen.
Stressing the plants before harvest.
Yeah, she theorized that a short, controlled stress period triggers a final protective response in the plant. It enhances resin production and maturity right before the chop.
It's like she's hijacking a natural defense mechanism.
That's exactly it. And she also made resin-first selections in the garden. Most growers pick plants based on bag appeal or smell.
Yeah.
She was selecting genetics specifically for their resin quality, even if they had a lower yield.
And all of this under that tight single-source control.
Always. From soil to finished product.
That philosophy, that her core belief was that the melt should speak louder than branding. It runs through everything.
And it became the blueprint for any craft washer who valued integrity over hype. Even now, 11 years later, her influence is everywhere. She's judging events, mentoring. Her reels on social media are basically training manuals for new washers.
And she's still the only one with that record.
Standing alone in the record books, a defining, relentless voice.
Which brings us to a part of the story that is just. It's incredible. The technical mastery intersects with this profound human resilience.
This is the immense paradox of her craft.
For someone whose entire mastery is defined by ice and cold water, her deepest personal trauma is tied directly to it.
Yeah, her professional dominance over the cold water process is in sharp contrast to a very real, very deep-seated fear of it.
So what was the source of that?
The profile details a freak car accident, a catastrophic one that sent her into a freezing river.
My gosh.
It was a fatal crash. She survived, but the trauma left her with severe PTSD, tied specifically to the sensation of cold and cold water.
The very elements she needs to work with every single day.
Every single day. The psychological toll of that, of having to face your most visceral fear every morning just to start work, it's almost unimaginable.
Well, that wasn't the only challenge.
No, later she was diagnosed with Lyme disease, which added another layer of physical exhaustion, of mental difficulty. So her hash work became both a constant trigger and a form of therapy.
Let's slow down on that idea for a second. How can something that triggers PTSD also be therapeutic?
It's a forced confrontation. The work demands such meticulous, focused discipline, the cold, the repetition, the need for precision, that it imposes a structure on the anxiety.
It recontextualizes the fear.
Perfectly put. It takes a terrifying element, cold water, and it subordinates it to a necessary, controlled process that produces healing medicine.
So it was necessity forcing mastery over fear.
The cannabis for her became the synthesis of discipline, medicine, and livelihood, all wrapped up in the trauma she had to endure every day.
She transformed a fear-inducing element into the core of her professional identity. But that doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Absolutely not. The source makes it very clear how essential her emotional support system was. As a single mother of 3, she said her daughters were her only solid team.
They were her reason.
They were the fundamental driving force, fueling her legacy, giving her the stability she needed to turn those internal battles into this incredible external success.
So as we bring this all together, Jenn Doe's journey, what's the ultimate takeaway for you, for the listener?
I mean, the story is this powerful synthesis. She evolves from an underground grower focused on medicine to a scientific innovator who defines the chemistry of an entire product category, all while overcoming this intense personal adversity.
The lesson being that true expertise isn't just talent.
It's rarely just talent. It comes from that combination of deep technical insight like understanding THCA crystallization and just relentless personal discipline that's born from pure necessity.
The technical mastery won her the trophy, but it was the discipline forged from trauma that really secured her legacy.
Which leaves us with a really provocative question, I think, for all of us. Jenn Doe achieved this industry-defining mastery by turning the very thing that traumatized her, the dread of cold water, into the central, necessary element of her life's work.
She had to conquer her greatest barrier just to be successful at all.
Exactly. So, as you go about your week, we want you to consider the power of that choice. What deep work in your own life relies on conquering a personal barrier?
What is your freezing river, and how could mastering that one element be the absolute key to unlocking your own legacy?
A powerful thought to explore. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the queen of single-source melt.
We'll see you next time.